Pool tweeted this out, and I guess he decided that it was such a good thought that he wanted to follow up on his program because Seth Rogen and his wife don't have children. They've decided they don't want to have children, that they're perfectly content in their relationship as just the two of them with their dogs and how much fun they get to have. And I've heard him in interviews explain this a few times. Seems perfectly reasonable and normal. But Tim Pool is very angry and upset about this because, as a father of two and a husband for 10 plus years, he's got to be really outraged over. Oh, wait, hold on. I'm just getting word in my ear that Tim Pool is not married.
He's paying for extra rooms in his house, though. So you know what that means.
He's not married. Actually, all of his colleagues kind of hang out at his house and work there, and they chill out and they play poker and they skate. Oh, those weren't his kids. Oh, and he doesn't have a wife. Okay, all right. So these are his opinions on Seth Rogen.
Oh, we got another one of these. So we have this quote from Seth Rogen about not wanting to have kids. And it's really sad, but I do think there is some defense I'll throw the way of these individuals, only a little bit. And look, I think it's great to have kids. I think you should have kids. I think more people should have kids. I think the climate cultists don't want you to have kids, and the Malthusians don't want you to have kids, but I think you should. And before I get millions of comments from people being like, "Where's your kids, Tim?" Yeah. I'll just put it this way: we have 2 extra bedrooms in our house, family planning. We'll leave it at that.
What?
I wonder if it will be left.
But I do think.
What? That's not. You can't use that to defend not having kids. You have 2 extra bedrooms. That's
just waiting to be filled.
That's just West Virginia North.
I don't even know what to say to that. Does he think he should get do you think having the 2 extra bedrooms means you get the child tax credit too, Tim? I'm really trying to struggle to understand.
Yes.
Lucky lady though.
Children are way more than just the square footage allocated to them in a home. But let's hear him expand on this.
Imagine
more.
If you never saw the top of your dad's head.
Yeah.
I know he thinks that, children is a full, complete human at the moment of conception, but I didn't realize that he also thought that children were human at the moment you have bedrooms available for them to possibly inhabit. I didn't realize that. That's new to me.
Family planning. We'll leave it at that. Personal business. But I do think there is something to give, on a scale of 1 to 10, I will give a 9 in the criticism and a 1 in the defense of people like Seth Rogen. But let's roll with this.
How charitable.
Here's the quote. "We're effing psyched all the time. We're laying in bed on Saturday mornings, smoking weed, watching movies naked. If we had kids, we could not be effing doing this." Okay, I'm just going to say this. It's a weird thing for someone who hasn't experienced something to be like, it is better to not have experienced said thing.
What?
There are people who have kids.
Yeah, let's
you know what's weirder?
On that
you know what's weirder? Somebody who has not experienced said thing insisting that experiencing said thing is necessary to creating a fulfilling life. Because Tim, you don't have kids, as you just admitted. You're more like him. Yeah. You're more like that
Seth
guy.
Rogen is saying, I'm fulfilled, actually love my life.
Actually, you're less like him because he's got a wife that agreed to marry him.
He's doing what he wants.
And loves him. And he's got a great weed business. And he gets to smoke it. Oh, shoot, we lost Binder. Anyway, go on, Brandon.
I was just going to say, as Otto von Bismarck said, only fools learn from experience. Smart people learn from other people's experiences. And you don't need to experience being nagged by a child to find it annoying when you watch other people. And it's totally fine. It's totally fine to be like, I'm not a kid person. See, I'm in stereo now. That's how right I am.
Whoa, double Brandon. All right, we're figuring it out.
This is just right wingers trying to have a literal hand in your, I was going to say pants, but another way to have their hand in your pants because they feel as though people become more conservative when they have kids. They feel as though people have more of a tie to suburban life, because a lot of people move to the suburbs for the the comfort and the ease of moving to the suburb when it comes to once they have a kid. It just represents a certain lifestyle to them that even if they don't want to engage in, they still think other people should be aspiring towards. But it's like, why? Like, isn't he, by their definitions, like one of those like degenerate liberal Hollywood types? Why do they want more of kids from Seth Rogen? Like, they would just be like him, right?
It's about social control. What's amazing is that like he pretends like he's this kind of new age. He says he's a liberal, or now he's basically admitted he's a conservative at this point. But like they're just replicating the exact same methods of social control that conservatives and evangelicals have been pushing on this country and the world for a long time, which is just that this is the way that you have to construct your life around your family. And if you don't do so, you're delinquent in some way. And if you're gay, or if you're trans, or if you are outside of this particular set structure of what a family should look like, there's something wrong with you. And like, again, but him in particular is why it's just so funny to me. He's now in this whole manosphere arc where, if you're not a guy with a Bugatti and like you're jacked with all the girls, you're not a real alpha. Buddy, I'm looking at you. Oh, if you don't have a family and kids, you're not really fulfilled. I don't have a family and kids. How are you, if we're all talking about you got to learn from experience in this way, you are not the right person to be speaking about this. I got to say.
Well, this is what happens though when you're following the conservative script though, yet you don't match what the ideal traditional conservative is. Like you see this all the time now. Like I saw some right wing like 20-year-old video game streamer who's in like Aiden Ross's orbit or whatever. Right. He was out there saying something like, I don't like, I'm coming out saying this for the first time. There's only two genders. I don't like transgenderism. Get it away from our children. This is a 20-year-old childless male. What are you doing talking about our children? Buddy, get the fuck away from my children. I got 2 kids. Who are you talking about, man? Our children. I mean, you see this. They are following that classic conservative script because that's actually like the dream for them too. But they haven't obtained that dream because, as Tim has said before, he doesn't have it. He said it in everyone else is the problem. And if that's what he wants to go by, he could go by that. He could say that everyone else is the problem. A lot of these people, though, are finding out also that everybody else is the problem when no one else wants to, when they're finding out people don't want to get with them either. And they don't have kids, but they're still trying to follow that conservative script that is the ideal male. But they have not obtained it.
And we should
you
say,
are not the
Bender,
ideal male. I am
you
actually,
are. Yeah.
Tim Pool. Yeah, I am the ideal alpha male. I got a boy, I got a girl, 8-year-old, 4-year-old. I got everything. The perfect nuclear family. The perfect nuclear family.
So to quote Thomas Friedman, suck on this.
On this.
You just snatched the metaphorical beanie off of his head with that mic drop. But no, I mean, like, you're totally right, Bender. And it's even further than that. Like, a lot of their appeal to traditional values are literally just coded appeals to like oppressing women and like disallowing minorities for certain spaces, because all of those like manosphere grifter types who talk about like Christian values or like traditional values, they don't want those to encroach upon the way they live their lives. They still want to smoke cigars and drink whiskey in a room full of other men while not really contributing in traditional ways to like society. How does that fit into having a traditional Christian lifestyle? Like, those are just like a lot of coded terms for like, well, I want a woman who doesn't like complain, but half of them, like, they're not going to church every week. They're not like trying to, take care of kids at home. Not that they will, or work a 9 to 5 to support children. Like, they just want this as a way to appeal to evangelicals who have tons of money and to like pretend as though, or rather to harken back to a time where like women could not make decisions. But when you talk about the actual traditional roles of men, they have no willingness or interest in filling those roles. A lot of people, you'll have like 20-year-old gamers on like Twitter who like want to play like Call of Duty all the time. Like, yeah, we need to get back to traditional values. Like, you wouldn't be able to play Fortnite all day if if you had traditional values. You'd be like working, you'd be going to church on Sunday. It's like, they don't want any of that stuff.
Well, it's just about like, they can't conceive of the fact that Rogan might be satisfied with his wife and the intellectual and emotional stimulation from her as a partner, as opposed to someone who is meant to sire his children. Like, again, it's just that exact playbook. Do we have any more of this before we wrap up? Let's keep going. Mr. Beanie Head?
better to not have experienced said thing. There are people who have kids, and the overwhelming majority, this is true, would not give up their children to go back to lying in bed, sleeping in naked, and smoking pot.
Is that what he said?
Right, let me just put it this way. Ask anybody who has children, and you may find some people who say yes because they don't want their kids. It happens. It does.
Like your dad.
Overwhelming majority of people.
Oh yeah, by the way, we should
Obviously.
just stop. Tim Pool's dad is regularly in our chat saying good things about us.
Yes, yeah. He doesn't have a great relationship with his family.
That's a different thing than saying like not.
I'm
having
choosing
kids.
not to have kids.
Yeah.
Right.
Having kids changes you.
Yes, he does. They don't have an interest
Some
in
people
it.
don't want that change, and they're fine without it. And
Yes.
Actually, like, who cares?
Right.
But actually, who cares is, and why this is, again, this is like a general patriarchal project, but also Tim Pool is just interested in monetizing anxiety of his audience. That's why you get this incel stuff in general. It's how can I be anxious about something that Tim Pool can speak about?
I skipped ahead a little bit just to get for something more interesting.
9 degree of criticism. You got to understand, this could be a cope, right? Seth Rogen with his wife. Here's what I think about. What if his wife can't have kids? What if something happened to her and they cried over it and she miscarried? And so when people come to them and say, you should be having kids, why don't you have kids? Maybe he gets defensive and doesn't want to say something as personal as my wife had cancer and now she can't and we're struggling.
Good advice generally.
Why is he coming up with
Maybe he
this
just wants-
another completely made up fictional scenario? Like he always
It's really
deals,
weird.
Even in this, he can't deal with the facts here. Listen, you don't gotta like Seth Rogen for over this. You could think it's something, you could disagree with what he said. You can say to yourself, wow, that's not the life I would want to have. That's me. I wouldn't want to sit in bed. I don't smoke weed, so that takes that off the table for me. So I don't miss
There goes
doing
the alpha
that.
male.
Right. But like that's not the perfect life for me. I like my kids. I love having them around. It's tons of fun. So you could say I disagree with Seth Rogen for my life. That's just something for him. You don't got to come up with a fictional scenario to make Joe Rogan's personal choices fit into your worldview. This
But
is
Binder,
so bizarre.
how can we create hierarchies in society if we can't place judgments on people's life choices? Don't you understand?
Race.
Oh. Thank you for reminding me of that.
I guess Seth Rogen is like white/Jewish, so you probably can't point to that.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
One thing I want to point out here too is like he keeps bringing up, and he brought it up at least once here, but I've heard him bring this up before, and a lot of right wingers bring this up about how like the maximalist like climate change activist position, where it's like don't have kids because the world, climate change. And listen, we disagree with those people on this show all the time. That's not a leftist position. That's a position that some people who share leftist ideals have, certainly. But then there's also conservatives who have an equal ideology to that. I hear conservatives all the time who apparently are supposed to be, everyone should have kids, like Tim Pool is saying. But I've heard plenty of conservatives chime in whenever they hear about some, black person or a Latino person talk about how they get food stamps or have welfare. There's a story about that. They're the first to chime in and say, "Oh, shouldn't have had kids. Shouldn't have had so many kids."
Well,
Oh, but that's never considered. Is that the conservative position on children? I mean, it is. But I mean, they never bring that up in their love for children. They never talk about that when they're going on these rants that everyone should have kids. The real thing they say is certain people should have kids that we deem responsible enough to have kids, and we're the ones who can make that choice, not you, the person actually having the children.
well, yeah, you mean some people are less concerned about the specific number of children that people are having and more concerned with the proportion of white children that exist and are born in this country. That's why, people like Elon Musk or people who, like you have said, will express concern about the number of children being born in Africa or a number of like Latino migrant children coming into the country, you know, either being born here or becoming across the border, because they just feel like the proportion of white people in this country can't dip below a certain percentage without like them being subject to the same, you know, maldistribution of resources that they want to inflict on other people. But like a lot of times it becomes this kind of personal narrative about like, well, everyone just needs to have kids. And then like the everyone is like an asterisk for like every white person who makes over a certain amount who's not trans or disabled in any way or LGBTQ should have kids.
Exactly.
Right.
My wife had cancer and now she can't, and we're struggling.
There's more. Oh, wow.
Maybe he just wants to appear strong and say, no, we're totally happy. Everything's great.
Bradley said
I mean, I do think, generally speaking, that is a good reason for never engaging in this sort of like, why isn't that family have kids? Like, you don't know people's shit.
Yeah.
Right. Well, he doesn't care about that.
As my wife had cancer and now she can't, and we're struggling with this. Maybe he just wants to appear strong and say, no, we're totally happy. Everything's great. That's why I say 1 degree. You always got to recognize sometimes there are people who can't have kids and they're miserable because of it, and they know they're miserable and they wish they could.
I mean,
that being said, you can't then come out and encourage people to live lives like this. You got to encourage people to have kids, and I'll tell you why. What I said was, Seth Rogen can say all of this stuff, and then 40 years from now, Seth will be dead. No, I mean that in a mean way. Like, I don't know how old he's in his late 40s. That'll be past life expectancy.
Get to the point.
Dead. His wife will be alive, and she will be petitioning government to pay for her assisted living. I do not
They're
believe
millionaires.
this system will work at all.
She'll be living off like, I don't know, super bad royalties. Like,
so that's why you have kids, is so they can support your ass in old age. It's not like the life of experiences.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, let's just be clear. Like, Seth Rogen is more successful than any of these right-wing like YouTube grifters, whether they're grifting on like, you know, childlessness anxiety or like the state of crime in inner cities or any of that shit.
He's more
like,
successful than the majority of people who work in Hollywood. Like, this is like the top echelon of the acting entertainment business. Like,
yes,
he's made movies, he's acted in movies, he's done it all. This is a dude who's got it set.
Like,
that's what makes him what Tim Pool's so anxious about this is it's like, oh, you can find fulfillment in other areas than I've prescribed, but
you can create other things. You can leave legacies in other ways if you're like actually dedicated to like building stuff or creating and not just dedicated to like, you know, tearing things down or like making tangential like criticisms of BLM. Like, I think, you know, Tim Pool as somebody who doesn't produce content that is like gonna, let's be honest, live past him for very long, or maybe not, it might even live as long as he does, to be honest, considering the way social media is going. Like, it might just, this is all just sour grapes. This is all just like, you know, Seth Rogen is successful, you know, I'm not successful in the mainstream way, like that typical right-wing content creators like are always like dealing with, that they will never reach like mainstream levels of success because of like the stuff that they produce.
Exactly. All right, guys. Sorry, no more time for calls today. I'm going to read some items, get out of here. I actually have an appointment, so got to run to that. Number 13, Brandon is making these people seem much more strategic than they are. Right-wingers just like hearing they're right all the time, and they don't have the chance to be have to change to be happier despite data and or history.
I don't know what that's referring to.
Yeah.
That's probably true, though, for sure. It's definitely a lot of vibes-based.
Evan from Portland, as a father of 4, defining yourself or your kids in relation to each other prevents either from being authentic. Agreed.
You know, some people just know they'll be bad parents, and don't you want those people to not have kids? I mean,
right.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, what's the big deal? Who cares? God.
Marblehead Marxist, the funniest thing about Don Lemon is, given his profile and his amenability to the center-right project, he could have had a job for life as long as he kept his mouth shut about his Andrew Tate takes, and yet that idiot was still able to make Elon look like a fool. I met Don Lemon once, and he was not friendly or nice. Yeah.
Maybe that's why Elon dumped him. Maybe it was like, this guy was not friendly or nice to me. He's gone.
Yeah.
No,
was
he
funny,
would
like-
be friendly to Elon. It was I accompanied Cenk to a CNN media appearance, and I was a nobody, but Cenk was somebody interesting. The contrast in between how we were spoken to was fascinating.
Maybe like it was like Elon thought it was an interview show, but like Don Lemon has some sort of like Punk'd reboot he's producing, and like Elon came out for an interview, and like Don Lemon just had all like 14 or 13 or 15 of his kids just waiting for him, like in a line, like intervention.
Right.
That's what happened. You know, I mean, I'm just like spitballing. It could be anything until it comes out. We don't know.
Look, Don Lemon is friends with Countess Luann from Real Housewives of New York, and that at least is a little bit of a plus in his. She's
When you
probably
said
a very
Count-
bad yeah.
I was just thinking, I could not imagine when I heard Count what you were going to say. So I just thought you were going to say Count Chocula. Like he's a friend with him. I was just like, wait, that's
Count
not a
Chocula.
real person.
No, everybody. People look up if you're a Real Housewives head. They are actually good friends, which is fascinating.